She's as naked as she's ever gonna be. Hey, today's an important day because we're almost out of work to do on the tub of the Garbage Camaro. Hey, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing and clicking the comments and all that type of stuff. We really appreciate you being here. And personally, I'm grateful to be back on this project. We're not done yet. Look at the floors, they're still crusty. We've still got to deal with some stuff like that, right? So, sure, cut the floors out, put the new floors in. From the top down, it's fairly clean. I can see kind of what needs to be removed, but for the most part, it's a little hard with rust. Rust is like a glacier. You're seeing the top 20% of it, maybe, and then the rest is all underlying, underneath sea level, right? And rust is no different. So we gotta have a realistic expectation of what the rust is gonna be. We need to get a good look at it, right? So here's the problem with that. When we look at the bottom side, there's factory undercoat, there's a bunch of gross transmission engine-y type fluid stuff, and a bunch of dirt. And I can't tell what's good metal, and I can't tell what's encapsulated in a bunch of crud. So we got to get down to the bottom of this. How do we do that, Kevin? Well, we sandblast it. So I've got a little portable handheld sandblaster. Guess what? I don't have a compressor in here. I don't have enough air to power it. But somebody does. We got a guy coming. We got a mobile sandblaster coming. And what they're going to do is clean up all of this stuff. Sandblaster, they get rid of it quick. This guy knows what he's doing. He's used to doing classic cars, and we're going to have him blasted. How much are we going to blast? Are we going to blast this AMD E-coat? Absolutely not. I want to leave this E-coat intact and in place. It's a good coating. It rivals that of General Motors or OE E-coat. It's a good quality product, and there's no reason to blast it off. If we were doing this before we started the car, yeah, I would have put it on the rotisserie, stripped it down to nothing, and said, blast it, let's see what's left. It's not the way we did this car. There's more than one way to skin a cat. So what we're going to do right now is mark with bright red paint exactly where I want this guy to spot blast. So he's going to come in. Most mobile blaster guys charge you by the hour, and this guy is no different. So the more efficient I can make his time, the better off he's going to have a comprehension and an understanding of the job, and the more economical it is, right? If I let him decide what to blast, then he's probably going to want to blast the whole car. Anyway, I'm going to tell him exactly what to blast with bright red paint, but I'm not ready for that because I don't have a, and I got a PPE up just a little bit, and I want to get a little bit more of this exposed to me. Something like that. Find a notch and find a mask. All right, so I know I want my frame rails done. And I want it bright red, so he's got zero doubt as to what to do. Kind of where he needs to stop too. So up here, we're going to do the inner wheelhouse. We'll do that. I know I've got some work to do on that rocker. This should, this should be a good indicator, a big giant red X over top of the rust. But I don't want to do this. There's no reason to do that. But up to here, there's my dividing line. And we'll get all of that junk. Obviously, Trans-tunnel. Even though that's not rusty, it's nasty, so we can utilize this guy and his unbelievable equipment with so much CFM. Look at that. That's special. I don't even know what that is. I've also, obviously, got some other work to do in stripping some parts off the fuel lines and the brake lines and the emergency brake or the parking brake system. That's got to come off. And that's no big deal. That's just a little bit of tear down. We'll do that. And this might seem a little redundant, but if you think about that guy, he doesn't want to have to make decisions about my car when he's out there with his 2-inch wide pattern of crushed glass. He wants to point and shoot and go, get on to the next job. So I'm going to say for the bottom, that's about done. I'll do this much too. The firewall, he's got a fairly fine media. I might have him do the firewall too, just because there's all that sealer caked up there. Just to get to the bottom of it. Obviously he doesn't need to do that. And all of this mess here, I don't want him to get rid of any of my markings or anything like that. And I certainly don't want to have any more sand in this stupid thing than possible. That's the one thing I don't like about Media Blast, and it's got nothing to do with the person doing it. It's just a process, and your car, your rails, your inner panels, your sandwich panels, your closed panels, you always end up having a bunch of sand coming out just like crazy. Might need to work on that balance a little bit more. So in here, up in this trailer, obviously we want all the floors done. And the toe boards until about there. But I don't want him to go past my red line, and I'll let him know. Look at the quality of that primer. There's no need to get rid of that. There's no need to blast that down to metal when it's in such great condition. And it's not that I'm cheaping out, but ow, that hurt. And back here, this is a whole different story too. I want all this done just to get rid of that insulation, if no other reason. And I don't even know what that is. That's crazy. That's probably some factory undercoat that got haphazardly sprayed on there. Get rid of my high-dollar seat belts. But I'm not doing the roof. We're not doing the roof. I'll do all of this. There. Get those. Get the custom floor pans cleaned up. Should I take off the brake pedal? I guess I don't know. I don't think so. I don't want to. I'm going to put a new pad on there anyway. All right, talk myself out of it. Economy. And again, we're not blasting that up in there. No need. So that tells our guy what we're gonna do. We gotta get rid of some things. It's no big deal. I'm still stoked. I'm super excited about this. And I'll retire that mask. The best thing is that I don't have to haul this car somewhere to have it done. There's places like that close to me, but it's super nice so that I can get this guy that's got a mobile setup. And I'll put his business name in the link. And he's a super nice guy. I've talked to him on the phone a couple of times. And he's used to doing, like I said, classic cars. So I feel like I'm in good hands with that. But for now, I've got just a little bit of mindless parts removing to do. So I'm going to get a head start on that. And you can watch if you want to. To get this car completely naked, I took off all the existing brake lines, what was left of the fuel lines, as well as any bump stops or random clips that were left on the body of the car, exposing any of the places that rust could hide. We also took everything left of the wiring harness from the inside, including the dome light circuit and that weird defrost system. So it's a beautiful day for sandblasting outside. We've got garbage out here behind the shop on the pad. We're just waiting for blaster guy Wes to come. And she's as naked as she's ever gonna be by my hands. And I've clearly marked everything red that needs the paint gone from it. We'll have a strategy meeting before he starts blasting. If he's got time, I'll get him to do the rear axle, because I plan on keeping this rear axle. It's a limited slip 10 bolt, plenty strong enough for what I want to do with this car. Here's something that is interesting to me. Here's new car, and here is old car. Mixed with a few pieces of new car, but mostly old car. A few minutes, getting this thing blasted down to naked metal. I'm excited. Wes got there and we had a meeting about what I wanted blasted, and more importantly, what I wanted him to leave alone. I wasn't getting the entire body sandblasted, and there were specific things that I didn't want him to touch, like the new parts and all the E-coat. However, he had his work cut out for him on the rusty floors, which is primarily what I wanted to media blast. Ironically, everything that I marked out in bright red spray paint, well, he couldn't see it because he's colorblind. He can't see red, but he could see the X's, so it did help a little bit. That's amazing. Got all that metal to rails. It's all great. I knew that was bad. I knew that was bad. I knew that was bad. Didn't know it was that bad up until the toll booths. Look at that. This is exciting. What I really liked about Wes, on top of the fact that he's just a nice guy, is that he knows cars and he's an excellent communicator. He was very particular and stayed away from everything that I asked him not to blast. He took a break about every 30 minutes and had me check what he was doing, just to make sure that I was happy with how things were going, and I was. The compressor Wes has is a pull-behind 185 CFM diesel-powered system that pushes air through a hopper that gets constantly filled back up when it runs out. It was an amazing system and can do everything from heavy industrial to the most delicate sheet metal. Wes has an excellent track record with sheet metal and doing classic cars, so I wasn't worried about anything, but the truth is, the underneath parts, it's a heavier gauge steel and there's less chance of warpage in the first place, so I was just content to let him sit there and just clean all of that stuff off of there. It was kind of cool knowing I didn't have to do it with scrapers and wire brushes and chisels.
That ain't good. But at least it's small. All this up in here looks so good.
After everything was done, he spent about 20 minutes blowing off the car and rotating it around to get all of the excess dust out, which I really appreciated. So I said thanks to Wes. He's done a great job. This was exactly what I needed, and it was what I needed to know. So I needed to know what was still good. And there's a lot that's still good. He got the inner wheelhouses done, frame rails done, all the stuff. And bonus, hello, the insides of my front fenders. That saves me tons and tons of prep work. And we got a little boo-boo there. We're going to fix that. That's okay. That's the only place I'm going to touch with my bare hands. Anyway, for now, we are going to go and pickle-X this, get some phosphate on that bare metal before it flash rusts. I highly recommend that you protect your metal right away. Okay, gotta go to work. I've placed a link in the description about the pickle-X product that I use. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I like this stuff. It's a phosphatizing liquid you spray on top, and it converts the rust to phosphate and uses a mild acid to etch. And what it does is produces a really thin membrane between the metal and the atmosphere, and it stops flash rusting indefinitely unless you get it actually physically wet. As long as this thing is inside, it's not going to flash rust. So I can take my time and do my repairs on top of the raw white metal without worrying about rusting. The alternative to using a conversion coating like this is to spray it right away with some sort of an epoxy primer or some sort of primer that will cover up the bare metal. But this is the way that I really prefer while I'm still replacing metal parts on the car, such as the floors, because dang, you're talking about Swiss cheese, brother. Obviously you notice me using a spray gun to apply it. Typically it's in a pump sprayer and I just wipe off the excess, but with extremely large sections of bare metal, I'm using a 1.3 fluid tip, and I've got the fluid level choked way down, so it's just producing a fine mist, but it's enough of a mist to completely cover and saturate the bare metal, even down into the pores. And of course, I'm PPE'd up. I've got a good respirator on, eye protection gloves. I want to make sure and protect myself while I'm spraying this, even though it's a fine mist. I didn't get the rear axle done, but I did get the insides of my fenders done. And this is huge because there's this weird pinched panel with a gap in between it that you can see that is really hard to strip the paint off of. This, like blasting the rest of it, saves me tons and tons of time in sanding and preparation, and getting down to the bare metal without warping it. Thank you, Wes. It really helps in preparing what's next, and also making this thing look really, really good. Not having to worry about lumps of paint and primer and all that stuff. Now, I don't plan on this sitting for 6 months or a year before I move on to coatings, but if I did, or if you're doing a long-term project, this product is fantastic for doing that type of stuff, and it'll keep your metal safe until you're ready to put your coatings on. So all of that done, the metal is now protected. I mean, look at this. It even looks different. It's protected and it's not going to rust unless the roof leaks or if I leave it outside. So I'm still using gloves to protect the metal from my hands because acid comes off your hands and yeah. But this is really exciting to me because it shows me what the car needs. But more importantly, it shows me what the car doesn't need. Here's what I'm talking about. This section right in here, this is white metal. This is exactly what the metal looks like, and it's perfect until right there. We got some tin worm, we got some pinholes, right? And all of this, of course, yeah, we can see that that metal is bad until there, until right there, I've got integrity. It's not even pitted. Right there, Let's pit it. Okay, so this shows me, like I said, what's good. When we look at the back, this is our, I don't know what you call it, a clasp for the seat frame. The floor pan ends right here. And this right down in here is the pocket for the frame rail. And so when I get into that, I get to see what that is. But we're good here. From here up, there might be a tiny little hole there. But from here, we got good white metal all the way there. And look at all of this good white metal. You can really tell, you can really see what's there. The superfine particles of sand will eliminate the rust. So we know what we need to fix, right? I've got AMD panels on this car. Hello. Here's the rear section. Here's the same spring pocket. Here's all of this real estate right up to where the rear seat back panel comes in. We don't need all of this. It's sure nice to have it just in case we've got weird, crazy rust. But we don't need all of it. What we're going to do is cut out what's bad, use that as a template, and trace this out and just, I call it scabbing it in. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but basically we're just going to patch the floor. Now, you do have alternatives. We have a complete floor from AMD that if it was bad enough, if it was like this on the whole floor and we had bad braces, yeah, you bet, I would be using a full floor. I'm glad I don't have to because we get to keep the structural shape and integrity of the vehicle. Here's what I'm talking about. These braces are literally the framework of the car. They're in great condition. Left to right, top to bottom. They're not even dented. And there's two of them, here and here. This is your, I guess you'd call this a torque box. Here's your frame rail into the torque box. All of this is in great shape. So literally all we have to do is patch around these braces. Now, if these braces were rotted, if we had a lot more structural rust, you bet your bottom dollar I would be putting a full floor in here, but there's no need for it. So we're gonna keep what's there, keep the shape of the car. We don't have to do any cross bracing to do floor inserts, floor pans. So it's a much simpler repair. The other side, it ain't good. But, so what we're going to be using for a source for our sheet metal is this. This is F-body 70 to 74, and it has all the stuff that we need. This is the rear floor that we're going to be replacing. This goes up into the seat thinger, and this is where your toe board is. Transmission tunnel goes here. And we could put the whole thing in, but like I said, I want to keep as much of the original good metal as possible and just patch around it. So that's what we're doing on this side. We're going to start here first. I'm going to cut this out and keep as much of it intact and use that as my trace or my patch panel, my transfer, if you will. And then we'll trim this out and kind of go back and forth and sneak up on the fit and use what we need to out of the brand new floor side. I'm starting here. What we're going to do is trim around these braces up into here, up here, around this brace, around this brace. And I'm going to leave a bunch of good metal, and we're going to start at that point. From there, well, we've got some spot weld drilling to do and things like that, but anyway, just more fun. So we're starting with cutting. So I'm just going to give myself a guide. We got tin worm there, tin worm there. Obviously, I'm just going to trim this. We'll drill spot welds from the other side. You can see them here and here and here and here. I want to keep this flat and undamaged. We're going to drill the spot welds from the top. Right here is a pinhole, so I'm going to come down, let's just say right here. Well, I know that's good metal. Right around here, that's where somebody screwed in their floor patch. It was a road sign or something. And this is going to be my main cut line here. And of course, we're going to go around there There's a little pinhole there, so I'm going to go above that. And we'll start with that. We may have to whittle back some, but that's going to give us a start. We'll get the bad junk out of there and move forward. Have I ever mentioned that this is a process? It's a lot of test fitting, a lot of test cutting. The easiest thing about a full floor is that you just fit the edges up and you level it and you burn it in. This is a little more involved, but it's less invasive. Does that make sense? I think so. Okay, cutting stuff. All right, so obviously this goes right here. And AMD doesn't cut these slots out. I can cut those slots out later because all of these covers, the drain covers, are still good. But what we're seeing right here is what we cut out, obviously, right? So I'm not throwing this away. This is going to be my template. Then I'll cut this out of my floor. And yeah, so let's take a look at this from the top. All right, so that's down into the torque box. We've got some more trimming to do here. Obviously that's bad metal. Well, it's a little crusty there, but it's still solid. That's a good thing about the sandblasting, is that we now know what the metal integrity is. Right here. What I'm probably going to do, I don't know. Right along here, this is really good metal. So I'm just going to do a trace line right here. That's kind of the outer edge of where my metal is good. So what I might do, just to make it simple, since I have all of this material here, what I'll probably do is leave this lip right here and do some plug welds. This will act as a shelf. I'll do plug welds here. And then here I can do a seam weld or a butt weld. But right here, this is an opportunity for me to have that locate and sit on a shelf there to where I don't have to separate the floor from the inner rocker. Now along here, I don't know if you could see them, but I sure can. Here are my spot welds that I'm going to be drilling out. I'm just marking them with the pen. What ones I can see anyway. And what I'm going to try and do is expose that one flange on the support and lay my patch in on top of that. That way I've got, it's a flat support that I can tie in to the bottom brace and make it strong, as well as do a butt weld across the seam here on good metal, and it'll make it stronger. So, yeah, that's the diabolical plan. And there, is that a brace? No. Anyway, this might be a butt weld. I'll clean that up later. But for now, this gives us a place to start and good metal that we can access and attach to. Two schools of thought, butt weld or lap weld. floor pans. I'm fine if you want to overlap and do rosettes. That's fine, especially when we're doing a patch like this. We're not sacrificing strength. I'm going to do a combination of both. I couldn't see the spot welds because of the surface rust, but I can see the dimples where I've pried the panel up around there, so I know where to grind now. There we have it. So this gives us a good look also of the inside of that torque box, which is nice solid metal. And yeah, it's good. So I'm still going to treat that. I'm going to pickle-X that before we sandwich it in and bury it forever. But so far I'm stoked. Yes. All right, so I want to leave as much of this support brace intact as possible, but I also want to give myself an idea of what about the halfway point is. So I'm just going to drill a few reference holes here so I can work from the top. I want to split the difference and have my patch sit half and half on this brace. That way I don't ruin the integrity of this pinch, and I can take advantage of this as well as that. Some of that and some of that. It helps when you don't break off the bits. See if maybe I can. Ha ha ha! Recovery. All right, so now we flip it over, and I can just connect the dots. Do you know how much my knees are appreciating this rotisserie right now? Like lots. All right, so here are my drill throughs, and this tells me exactly where the halfway point is for that brace, which is a nice bit of info to have. Over to there, over to there, we'll meet up with that line right there. All right, so there's my new cut line. This is actually working. Dang it!
I threw a belt. Gotta get another belt. I threw it.
Captain.
I got the belt gone. I stayed.
Well, that actually worked. So I can now take this over here with the rest of the stuff. And put the pieces together. Where's that other piece? I know I cut another piece out. It's gone. Okay, it dropped. So that tells the story of the metal I cut out, obviously, right? So now I can use this as my template, and I can trim my patch and I don't have to use the whole thing, and then start setting it in. I'm not done dressing that. It's got sharp edges. I want radiuses or radii. I want that around the corners, and I want it trimmed. I don't want any flash hanging off. So this is a rough cut, right? Well, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to overcut. I'm going to overcut this by probably a quarter, well, maybe, no, I'm going to overcut this by probably 1/8 of an inch, just to give myself enough room to trim. We can always grind and trim. It's much more difficult to put metal back on. Not impossible, we got the welder, but this is, again, the process of sneaking up on it. So I got to get a silver marker, and then we'll mark. All right, so I'm locating this thing by the little center holio here, even though it doesn't really matter. I am also, can I mark those? No, dang it, pen no worko. I'm gonna do this. Come over here. That's a nice sound, isn't it? And that, whatever that is, what is that? What is that?
What the hell is that?
I know what that is. Get my picture made with it. All right. So, look at that straight line, folks. Learned that in drafting class in the 7th grade. Yeah. And come up over here. Freehand, yeah, I suck, but I can trace like a big dog. Anyway, it's right there, and again, we're doing about a 1/4 inch out. Tell you what, the guy that media blasted this car, Wes, he was awesome. He did exactly what I asked him to do. He was very, very good with communication, which is really important because he wasn't just going nuts. He could get surgical with that beam. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. This right here. So I asked him, I said, uncover that. Let me see what that is, because this is a big sandwich of metal. You've got your A-pillar coming down, there's 2 or 3. You've got your balloon assembly, your upper dash, there's a side brace, here's the hinge pillar. And this can be a real problematic area on these second gen F bodies. And I needed to get a look. And I said, let's not, you know, mess up the VIN. So look how close he got. It was amazing. And he used tape on that. I don't know. I'm bragging on the guy, but he did a great job. He did precisely exactly what I'm talking about. And he used the right type of media and all that type of stuff, which was, if I haven't told you already, it's crushed glass. So I really want to get that marked out down there. Give me just a second. I don't know why. There. All right, so now let's keep this as a souvenir. And I think I'm going to drill those holes first. So I believe the seat frame bolts down in through these holes, so we don't want to cover up the captured nuts on the bottom side. So I'm going to cheat for a second here. Okay, right there. That's how big the hole is. I don't have to measure. I hate measuring. All right, so I'm going to go up to my black line there. As they say, Bob's your uncle. So now I can trim around here. I'll do this with the big, ginormous 4.5-inch electric Wonder Machine. And I'll use my earplugs where I can't hear anything and my mask that fogs my glasses up because I love life. All right, so here's a proactive safety tip. I'm cheap. I don't want to buy anything I don't have to buy. But when I get down low on a wheel like that, you know what? I don't save them. I intentionally break them so that I'm not tempted to use something like that that may have been compromised. So it's just one of my things. All right, we'll check and see what we have. So I'm locating by these holes here. And I feel good about that. So that's we're in the right place there. All right, so that's my reference point. Got a good flange here. Everything works across the back. Now I'm going to round these corners off and we'll make some adjustments. But right here, here's an interesting thing. On our actual car, on the garbage, we have a step right here. And on our patch panel is a step right here. Isn't that fun? So what do? Oh my God. There was a difference in the floors between 74, 75. There was a change somewhere when they were building these cars. This is a 74. This floor panel is 70 through 73, 74. There's a little bit of crossover, and if you guys know anything about assembly lines, they used the previous year's parts to put on the next year's cars a lot of times. So there's no guarantee what year this floor actually is. I'm not blaming AMD. I'm blaming the General for having a little bit of difference. Either way, doesn't matter. I can trim that out. This is actually the right height for the floor, so I got to do a little bit of a relief there, and we'll just make that fit, and it's no big deal. I got the hot metal glue gun, but I feel pretty good about that. There's my patch. What I'm going to do, like I said, is get away from all this extremely dangerous sharp metal here. I'm going to grind these flush and smooth, and I'll create a little step right here, fix that. I might just open it all up until I'm ready. And then I'm going to use this as my template, and I'll do my final cut line in around here, and then we'll move forward. I'll just lock that in place since I only have 2 hands. It would look weird if I had more. And that's not really locked in place. All right, operation fail. All right, genius, what are you doing now? Complete fail. I'm out of ideas. I know what I'll do. All right. Yep. That's much better. All right, now we've got a flush fit right here. Super sexy. Okay. And that didn't change. That didn't change. All right, so now I'm going to lock this in with some Tetz screws, and then we'll do our final trace. I want to put pressure on this before I mark it in. I don't want to guess anymore. So. All right, so with that locked into place, it can't shift anymore. So I'm just gonna shove it down with my enormous body weight and girth and make my final trace line here. Gee, Kevin, why don't you just grab your drill and zip those screws out with the electric drill? Well, concerned viewer, it's because I broke the bit on the drill driver. All right, so now we know. This is good. We know exactly where to put it. I've got locating holes fore and aft. And now I've got my final cut line here. So I'm gonna zip that, cut more. It's just free panel. So I'm just gonna follow that around, and then I'll grind that flush, and we'll have a nice weld, a boutée weld around the outside edge. We'll start burning some metal soon. I'm getting a collection of tools here that's really annoying. There's stuff I need, but there's stuff that I don't anymore. So I've got to do a bit of a tool party, clean up just a hair. right. Set that down there. So, media blasting, you're going to be pulling sand out of every crevice for a long time. This is my trusty Picklex. Again, I'm going to pre-treat this metal, let it sit there. This edge. I would be remiss if I didn't do this stuff right now. I'm also going to grab a little scuffing pad and work it into that surface. All right, so I always like to dry the excess off, but it made me accidentally discover this. See this right here? Cut it with the cutoff wheel. That's just on the back side. That's just, I call it flash. But what it is, it's an opportunity for moisture to go in there and just do damage. So I'm going to get some sandpaper and dress that backside edge. Because this is a blind panel. I can't touch it from the bottom. The rest of it, I can dress these edges from the bottom. See, it's right there too. So anyway, yeah. While that dries, while my phosphate dries, I'm going to get a piece of sandpaper and do my diligence. All right, one last thing before we start gluing it back in. The captured panels, I'm going to use the zinc weld-through primer. I'll never see this again. You'll never see this again. If I don't keep this car, which I hope to keep this car, but whoever ends up next to this car, because let's face it, we all have a shelf life, I don't want them to have to stress over this. So I'm going to use weld-through primer on everything that there's exposed metal. I don't need it on the butt weld. I can treat that later, but down in here, yes, sir. Now I feel good about it. Oh, except for that. I'm running out of weld-through primer too. All right, so I've got the weld-through primer on the perimeter here, in there. Now we can drop it down in there. And I've got a super nice fit. I like it. If I don't play my cards exactly right on this one, it's just going to embarrass me. Nice flush fit everywhere. All right, so I'm going to take out the welder and we will start getting... I changed my mind on the ka-chunks down here. What I'm going to do is I'll just do stitch welds. About 1/2 inch and just kind of seam weld that and it'll be fine. I'll be able to address it from the bottom side, make it look pretty. But I think that's good, man. And then I'll figure out a way to fix that. That's the least of my worries. I'll do something. Do something, man. right. So I've done the dance of 1,000 tack welds all the way around the perimeter of the outside, because you just can't hammer down on it. I've got stitches here. They don't look great, but I'll grind them flush, throw some seam sealer on there. For the most part, this is a flush fit all the way around. And I'll grind it and seal it and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's kind of it. I want to look at the bottom. Oh. That's fine. What I'm looking for are gaps. So this is pretty flush. I'll have to make some magic in there. That's where that little discrepancy was. That, I'll tap that up to where it meets the floor. This is fine. This is a little far away. So if you look at the bottom one here, these two ginormous spot welds hold that, I'm going to call it a torque box. Whether, maybe you Camaro guys can correct me. It's part of the frame rail. But anyway, that is a flush fit there, and it is not so flush there. So I'll do a combination. I'll drill those guys out, tap that in, and weld that flush. But for the most part, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the car. And I'll wear out a couple of flap wheels and probably another bottle of shielding gas, quite honestly. But it feels really good to know the recipe, to have the floors on their way in, The front section, not very bad. Back section, again, we're just whittling things out. Got all the pieces here. I've got a fridge full of beverages. And I know what to do next. And hopefully you guys do too. So thank you for watching. We're going to sign this one off, and I've got some more work to do. We'll talk about what we're going to do on the bottom side, because I'm a big fan of the spray-in bed liners. But I want those welds to be nice and smooth first. I want it to look nice when somebody looks up underneath it. We're going to be doing more and more Camaro stuff. We've got some cool stuff happening with Derek and the OBS truck. We're going to an event, C10's in the city. Yeah, I'm narrowing in my focus, and it's just going to be down to a few projects. So thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for commenting, and we'll see you on the next one.